Welcome back to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes. This afternoon I'm joined by Chris McElwain and Sean Conley. And we're here to talk about Motherwell 1, Celtic 3. Let's start with Jota and work our way back, gentlemen. Being the bastard says, I'm no crying, you are. Sean, that was written in the stars there, wasn't it?
It certainly felt like it. Yeah. Oh, man. It looked like he was going to try and do it on his own from like the 95th minute on.
Yeah, yep.
And we didn't feel really under any threat. I don't think Motherwell had a touch in our box the second half, so they were just playing for time, try to hope for a mistake. And we were much we created so many more chances in the second half than we did in the first. But in the first half we scored 2, and in the second half it's a late goal. But you're right, Jota is the story here. Like, it would have been much nicer to be comfortable earlier. 2 goals chopped off for offside. That Adam, the own goal that's made by Adam Idah, the overhead kick by Kuhn. And it could have been a much more comfortable event, but instead the headline is going to be Jota scoring the ceiling goal in the 94th minute. And your man, Jota, I think he was actually crying, and obviously that's looking at TV right now. He's up with the fans, he's dancing, he's got the number 7. It's a glorious sight. It's going to be some narrative out of it.
Yeah, it is a glorious sight. You know, this is the thing, right? We every day, every single game, we look at every nuance of Celtic. We criticise poor displays, we criticise poor decisions, Chris, and you know that there. And I don't care what anybody thinks that we're being over emotional. That there is what it's all about, you know. There's Jota. He's a hero. People think about us as adults. How can you have heroes? Well, that's what football does to you. It reduces you to a kid. You know, there's people with pictures of Jota on their wall and everything at home, Chris. And
who would do such a thing?
I know. But Sean makes a great point. You know, there was a determination from Jota the moment he came on that park. He was going to do something. There really was a positivity to every single thing he did today that didn't always come off, right? He's still going to have to get, you know, a lot sharper. He's played 35 games of football in 18 months, 10 of them, I think, in France and 25 in Saudi. It's going to take a while, but I'll tell you something. I mean, you couldn't write it. The iconic celebration afterwards, he was so emotional. He was in tears, Chris.
Yeah, he's he's not the only one. I had a whole plan for what I was going to say before that goal went in, and Jota's just kind of broken me, to be honest. After that, yeah, look, I thought, I mean, talking about Jota's individual performance, first of all, I thought when he came in, I thought he was tidy. I thought he did a lot of the right things. You know, he wasn't trying to do the spectacular. I think he was trying to, you know, find his feet in the game, which I think he did well. What I liked is that he didn't shirk any responsibility. You know, he was looking for the ball. He wasn't shying out of challenges. You know, we had concerns about, you know, was he carrying enough weight or enough, physicality given his fitness levels. Well, actually, he was knocking a few of the Motherwell boys about at times. Looked fast. Still looks like he's got the ability on the ball. You know, looked hungry as well, which was really nice. I thought he was doing very well on the right-hand side.
He definitely does look hungry. There's no doubt about that.
Well,
I wondered about that.
Needs a feed. But you know, I thought he was doing very well on the right-hand side initially, and then when he moved over to the left, I think he stepped it up another level. And I was concerned about actually changing the system, because I thought at that time Adam Idah was leading the line very well, but Jota, you can see what he brings to the table, and if this is him, unfit and rusty in terms of his match sharpness, oh my goodness, he is going to absolutely terrify defences going forward. And I mean, you talk about heroes, right? And it is moments like that make you relate to a player and have that hero worship. And I've got 3 at the back just behind me, they're just behind my shoulder, next to Jota, you know, with Henrik, Chris, and Big John. There's something about those kind of players, you know, the players for big moments and players who create those sort of memories. Now, this is one game, and you know, in the context of the whole game, it was just one moment, but that'll live long in memory for a lot of supporters, and hopefully for Jota as well. And if anything was going to convince him he's made the right move to get back, well, you see that reaction from the fans. Absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Love it.
He needs the energy. He needed the energy. Now, the other night there, I came back from, covering the Villa game live in Glasgow, and then I was catching up on the this kind of mythical, legendary, whatever you want to call it, WhatsApp group that maybe we can do something to get people in on that. I'm not sure. It's quite funny to watch at times. And there was like 200 messages, right? So I was able to follow the fortunes of Celtic through the emotion, right? And some of the things, Kevin Graham has disassociated himself from everything that happened up to.
We all saw them. We all saw them.
Yeah, they're screenshotted. But this gives you an idea of how this works, right? So Paul McLean comes in, and I'm not having a dig at anyone. It just shows you how this works. Paul McLean with actually a very weak squad. Paul McLean, Jota, Patrick Carroll, boom, and Barry O'Sullivan is screaming and shouting at his television somewhere on the planet. And that's what this does to you. Now, the big thing I would point out, though, Sean, is we talk about players as commodities. We just talk about them. They're just objects in a game of chess, and we sell them and we buy them and get rid of this one, and that one's not contributing. And that showed today that Jota's emotional reaction to that goal shows what this football club can mean to these modern day footballers who often we look at, and I don't mean this specifically towards Jota, we often look at them as mercenaries and chasing the dollar and all this kind of stuff. But this shows you not just what's happened in his personal life since his career's been derailed, but it comes back to Celtic, and this is the place where probably he's been at his happiest. And it actually does show that beyond all the money and all the modernism of football, that emotion never ever leaves you, because that's what hooks you in the first place as a Celtic supporter, Sean.
Yeah, well, we're not playing for Celtic, but if we were, I'm sure we'd be doing similar things to Jota if we had that kind of ability. But yeah, it's very special to see. There's no criticism for leaving. For all we know, he didn't want to leave, and maybe the club have been offered 25 mil, and he's been kind of driven down to the airport and sent off to Saudi. So maybe he never wanted to leave in the first place. But regardless, we all know he loved it when he was here. We loved it when he was here, and now he's back. And one game back, he's immediately on the score sheet, which you can say sure is a tap in or whatever last minute. You can try and mitigate it in whatever way you want. But we've got Yang, who's scored one goal, I think, all season. Palma not scored a goal this season. So it's not that easy. There's these players that get paid a lot of money at Celtic and we're coming for millions of pounds. It's not that easy. So he's done it. He's got off to the start. It's an emotional outlet. And what we want to see now is we want him to, get his conditioning right and really, be one of the three wingers four, we hope, but certainly at the moment, the three obvious wingers that are competing for places. He looked okay in the right. He looked really good on the left. It looked like cutting in, he was really going to be a danger. And hopefully that's a real driver for the second half of the season in the same way that Idah was last year when we brought him in January.
Yeah, we spoke previously about the types of players that we can bring into the football club. Sometimes, Chris, it's the player who has something to prove.
Yes.
You can use an example of Kuhn, having had a few opportunities at big clubs, Ajax, Bayern Munich, doesn't work out for him. Comes to Celtic, we seem to be good at giving you the platform, the nomadic kind of journey that Carter Vickers was on until he comes to Celtic Park. And then he's very much a Celtic player now, having had something like 9 loan deals out of Spurs. Matt O'Reilly out the game for 6 months before he signs for MK Dons. Celtic give him a platform and then he's able to move on. And I think that I've said this during the week when we signed Jota, we're the perfect place, the perfect platform. I think we've got the perfect manager for a guy like Jota, because I'm going to bring up this comment here from Deck. Obviously, we're not watching the game on the telly, but McGeady apparently has said on Sky that he doesn't understand why Jota was crying. And it's not just about, the badge kissing element, I'm back. It's because quite clearly in the last 18 months, his career has completely derailed. And yes. I think you got a sense of that when he did the press conference that Acsom Rabbani attended on our behalf. You got a sense that this has gone awry, this has gone wrong. And obviously that's going to affect him mentally, it's going to affect him emotionally. So I think having a wee tear just shows that he's only human.
I think you've nailed it, and I think I said it as well following the press conference. There was an element of self-reflection, of self-awareness, and a real sense of humility, which I really liked coming from Jota, and actually is probably quite rare amongst many footballers, particularly when they're still very much in the midst of their career. You could tell that Jota, I think, appreciates the fact he's getting a second crack at this club, and I think that all came to the forefront tonight when he was standing in front of those fans. The reaction he got, just even when he was coming out, in touchline ready to come on, I don't think any players get that anywhere else. And I think the fact that you've had that gone away, and let's be honest, Jota deserved a big move. He played himself into a big move. It wasn't that the club just gave him the platform and off he went. He had to earn the right to get that big money move, and he took it. His reasons are his own. No harm to him. But the fact that he's come back, and he's come back with that self-awareness to say, do you know what? Didn't work out the way it was. I never had what I had here previously. I've not been able to recapture, that feeling that the fans and the club and the city and the people give me. And he's found his way back. That, for me, almost by its very nature, sends a message to other players to say, look, there are opportunities out there. You could go on to have a great career, but please, for the love of God, don't underestimate what you've got with our club. This club is more than just a platform, right? This club is, I think, for players like Jota, it's something more than that. It's something special. And, when players can give something like that back to the club, they will go down as you say, icons, heroes, legends, whatever you want. The opportunity is there. They've got to take it, but the opportunity is there to do it.
The big thing is, I love when a player who, up to the point that he signs for Celtic, has got no emotional attachment to this football club. There's no connection. Yeah. And then they fall in love with Celtic. Joe Hart's a good example, I think, right?
Absolutely.
But it's not everybody, Sean, that comes along and absolutely buys into what Celtic's all about. I've dealt with a few of the guys who were involved in the Barcelona win over the last few months. Joe Ledley, Charlie McGrew. Apparently, Kelvin Wilson didn't get what all the fuss was about when he was at Celtic. Who was the other one? Carlton Cole recently spoke about Celtic quite derogatory and in a quite derogatory manner. And then I heard a story about Vasilas Barkas, nicknamed Hologram Hands by our very own Brian Degman, who for his first training session pre-season comes out in training. He's wearing this big coat and he's wearing a snood and all the rest of it. And Scott Brown's probably just wearing his Ys, and because he doesn't feel the cold. And he's like, "Nah, mate, get that together. You're going to have a lot colder experiences in Scotland, particularly when it gets to the winter." And Barker just said, "Well, I won't train." He wasn't interested. He was there just to get paid. So it's not everybody, Sean, that gets the Celtic bug. But when a player does, I think we should rejoice. I love it.
Yeah, we've seen so many mercenaries down the year coming in, like Freddie Ljungberg, Juninho, that sort of come and just collect a wage, don't do much, and then go away. So, and we've also seen the opposite side of that. Players that have really connected, even players that have gone on to not really scale the same heights after they left here, like Gary Hooper, Paddy Roberts, that sort of player. So I think having the right mentality and really investing can really make a difference to what you give and what you get out, and that's what we've seen with Jota. And what we're also seeing from a player who I thought was man of the match today was Dyson Maeda as well, and he's I'd say he's the same. You see him having his kids on the pitch, you see him posting on Instagram after games. He was my man of the match today, and he got a goal and 2 assists, and he's, I believe, has bought into Celtic in the same way that Jota did, and appears to be reinvesting in. So it was good, a lot of positives in that sense today.
No, without a doubt. We'll talk about some of the things we weren't happy about. Of course we will, but we're on a high. We're elated. Jota on the wing. There's a few people singing in the comment section. Keep it going. But Stephen McFarlane, if you're going to say nice things about Tony Ralston, I'll be bringing the comment up. Ralston was fantastic. Love the guy. 119% every game. See what you did there. He plays nice. The main reason I've actually brought that up is because I think what it shows that when you need to rest Johnston, or if he's suspended or injured, and we've seen that he's picked up a few injuries, then you've got a very dependable right back in Tony Ralston. And we kind of opened up today's streams, Chris, with some concerns about that not being the case on the left-hand side of defence. Some concerns that as a striker, as good as Idah was, and we'll talk about him, your backup is somebody who is primarily a left winger for Celtic and has been for the best part of 3 seasons. So it does bring up that discussion, because I thought the fullbacks were excellent today. I thought Taylor was brilliant as well. He created some really good chances.
Excellent game, yeah.
Ralston loves the overlap and underlap and getting the crosses in. He loves all that, and he does it well. But we're still very, very thin, and I know that Scalesy came on for Taylor as predicted, but I don't think he is as effective as a left back. Now, am I buying too much into, or am I remembering too much performances against Bodo Glimt? Remember, he wasn't great, or is he sufficient as a backup? Because personally speaking, I think it's precarious running, not just the Bayern Munich game between now and the end of the season, just with Taylor and Scalesy playing kind of second fiddle to him.
Do we doubt Liam Scales at our peril, given what he's done over the past 2 years? There we go. Yeah, there we go. I mean, like, he just needs to sort of hair out and look like that, and he'd be fine.
I think he's going for the Maldini, but
it looks like it. Yeah, it looks like it.
It's just no his quality and his thick. He doesn't have the volume of a Maldini.
Needs to go to Jota's hairdresser. That's what he needs to do. Now that Jota's there, he'll get him sorted out. Look, I've said that I think Greg Taylor is absolutely a top quality player for us. I've said it along. I know he's got some defensive frailties there. I think he's hampered by his height. If I was a player, I'd be exactly the same. There's not much you can do about that. But I think he offers a lot in terms of his link-up play, his ability to overlap. He's got good distribution. He's actually good with the ball at his feet. He does a lot of things right on a football pitch, occasionally at the detriment to the defensive side, because he's quite ambitious in the way he advances forward, and sometimes with the way we can concede possession, that leaves you a little bit exposed on that left hand side. And I think sometimes he's not the most effective left back when we are in game management mode. We're trying to hold a lead, or we're trying to see a game out. Now, in those situations, I think a player like Liam Scales could come in and do that role that Taylor can't. I mean, he doesn't have a lot of the attributes that Taylor's got in terms of the ball control and distribution and the pace and that kind of thing. But what he does have is a physicality. He's pretty good at winning the balls in the air. His positional sense is pretty decent. He is left-sided. So, when you've got, maybe a team who are firing, you're going direct, firing, long high balls towards the box at that left-hand side, Scales is a decent option there to win them in the air. And we've seen some evidence of that. Now, would I feel confident having Scales in there in replacement for Taylor as the starting left back? That's where I think you have concerns, because I'm not sure he's what we've seen anyway so far is that he's good enough to make that role his own. He is very much, for me, a plan B, game management, shore it up at the back type option, rather than the traditional left wing back the way Brendan Rodgers wants to play. So it's a difficult one to say whether could we manage with him to the end of the season, given how dominant we are domestically. Two games in Europe. I mean, I would like us to have a go, and I'd like us to have the personnel to have a go in those games, irrespective of who the opposition is. But if we have to wait to the summer, I think Liam Scales has earned the right for us to have a little bit of faith in his ability. Should that come down to should that be the case?
It knocks on to centre half though. It knocks on your cover.
It does.
There is a knock-on effect.
Because
if, let's say, the situation arises where Scales is playing on the left, Sean, you're looking at the central defensive area and you're thinking, what have we got now? Well, we've got Trusty and CCV, who are your first choices. And beyond that, you've got a player in Mike Nawrocki, who was overlooked for Dane Murray during the week against Villa, and who has played 9 minutes of football, and who clearly Brendan Rodgers does not rate. And there's a reason behind it. We only see what happens on the park, what happens at training. Brendan Rodgers has no faith in this player. So if you're going to do that, you're negating. If you don't buy a left back, you're going to have to buy a centre half. So one or the other. And I don't think Scales is a natural left back the way we like to play, like you've explained there, Chris. I agree with that. But yeah, it does. I don't want to be too negative, because I think that was a good, dominant, very, very dominant performance, to the point where Schmeichel was barely seen. He was barely seen throughout the game. By the way, Liam, thank you very much for supporting the channel. Jota on the wing indeed. Idah, man of the match. Let's talk about Idah. And I want to then speak to Sean, our resident referee. No booing at the back, please. on a couple of decisions, but we'll start off with Idah, because for me, Idah's a guy that, you know, we could rewind and we could bring up the comments, but we won't do that. He was getting loads of stick on here, loads of stick about wasting money, this and that. He's now our number one striker. He's our only striker. By virtue of that, he's our number one striker. But he's repaying us. He's repaying Brendan with a bit of faith. Let's rewind to the young boys game where he forces the OG. Today, he forced an OG that was cut off, and we'll talk about that. He scores what looked for a long time to be the winner today, and he scores 2 against Villa. And he looked a lot more confident, Sean. He's not always. I mean, he gives the ball away from time to time, but his touch was so much better. And I'm looking at him thinking, well, if Kvitsgarden was the guy we wanted and he was our number one target, but we were getting quoted, let's say, 14 million quid, you buy him, you're probably going to have to play him, and then Idah just gets dunted back to the bench. I mean, at this moment in time, Idah can play the way Brendan wants to play, because he's one of Brendan's signings. He can lead the line. He can play up front when we're defending. He does that really, really well, I think. But if we bring somebody else in, is it to play second fiddle to him? Probably now.
It really depends, doesn't it? When Kyogo was here, the chat was goal drought. Then since Kyogo's left, he's had 3 goals in 2 games, and he played well today. And not only did he play well, Celtic played differently in the 2 halves. Like in the first half, Motherwell were a bit deeper, so he was having to really take the ball in tight spaces and turn, and he did it relatively well. And then in the second half, when Motherwell step up a bit, he gets in behind. The goal is more offside, apparently. He gets that space in behind, which is a classic Kyogo trait. So he's shown that he can do the things that we need him to do, and he's even, the second goal that we score, he's in there, Johnny on the spot, as they say, when the ball comes across from Idah, just to tap it in. And I don't want to say tap in, because it was actually a bit of a stretch for him. So he did well to get his foot on it and get it in. So good all round. Man of the match, probably not, but he was certainly up there as one of the better performers on the day today. And I'm happy with how he's played since Kyogo left. I wonder if that's maybe there's been some sort of change mentally for him since that's happened, or maybe it's just unrelated, but something's clicked for him. Maybe that goal at Villa Park just made it click for him. But he's looked good in the last 2 games, and I think we can be confident going forward with him. But the question that we had, maybe a month ago, we would say, are we happy going with just 2 strikers? Well, now we're saying, are we happy just going with 1 striker? And the question was always, is Maeda going to be the backup? And the answer was today, yep, Maeda's going to be the backup. When Idah came off, it was for Yang. Yang went onto the wing and Maeda went up front. So I don't know that we'd be too comfortable with that situation for the remainder of the season. That means we're 1 injury away from being in real peril. So I'm not overly comfortable with that situation.
Yeah, and just the very fact, and by the way, someone suggested that instead of a swear box, we should have a Yang box for every time I criticise him. But very much like, if Scales were in a scenario where he has to play left back, then we're short at centre half. It's similar, isn't it? If Maeda has to play centre forward, you're then relying on Yang, and the quality does drop. Let's not be around the bush here. And obviously, Jamesy Forrest is coming back, but it's been a fairly lengthy layoff for James, and I would never write him off. That would be remiss of me to do such a thing. But we don't know what we're getting when he comes back, because obviously father time or mother time or whatever you want to call it is very unforgiving. Now, here's the thing. Colin comes in. Colin Bean says, not sure how Kenny feels after that. Not looking great for him at this point in time. To be honest with you, and it was nothing personal towards Johnny Kenny, I don't think that having Johnny Kenny as a back, and Chris and I spoke about it before the game, I don't think that we're strong enough if he's the backup. Tony Cassidy suggests that he may be on his way back to Shamrock Rovers on loan. I think that would be a good move for the player. And big shout out to Tony, who in actual fact donated a signed Jota framed print just the other night, because obviously we're consistently raising funds for good causes. So thank you, Tony. You did that. You dropped it off at the venue. You don't ask for anything at all, not even recognition, but you're going to get it anyway. Thank you very much, my man. And Joe Fulham, we need to talk about Jota's hair. You too, Scales. Listen, if all we need to talk about is his hair, then that's absolutely fine. James McGrory, a man with a famous name. We spoke about Jimmy McGrory earlier on today. He's had a rough 18 months, PJD. No wonder he was emotional. I totally agree with you. And you know what? It's refreshing to see a player being, showing that raw emotion, just to remind us that they're not some kind of robotic. Now, I'm going to come to you, Sean, because I did think the officials were poor today, very poor indeed. If we're looking at, obviously, the first half, we spoke about the fact that Carter Vickers was shoved in the back. We don't get a free kick. Moving into the second half, a couple of wee things. For example, Ralston getting taken out by Nicholson, no action. Engels doing that thing where he gets the ball because it's clearly a free kick, and then he gets a free kick against them. Wee things like that are just annoying. Callum Scott was the ref today, and obviously John Beaton was on VAR. The one I was really unhappy about was actually the offside, right? Because... I mean, if you rewind to last year, anybody who didn't tune in when we spoke post Peter Grant, we had an event with Peter Grant. Grant is brilliant, absolutely fantastic guy. Backstage with the stories that you can't say publicly and also on the stage, he's brilliant. But he did say publicly around the way that VAR is operated, and he was talking about a friend of his that he knows who works down south for it, and he says, look, it's there, but it can still be manipulated. This is the thing. It can still be manipulated by someone who's operating it. And he spoke about the lines. He spoke about the thickness of the lines, and the worse system, the worse quality system you have, the easier it is to manipulate, Sean. Because my big criticism of Scottish VAR, right, is when you see the lines. I mean, it's often I'm looking at it going, I still don't know. Whereas when I'm watching the Champions League, for example, you can tell if a toenail's offside because they've got the proper graphics, the 360, the whole thing. It's just cheap and nasty what we've got today, because I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, is it offside or not? I'm not even sure, because the lines don't really prove anything to me. They're poorly drawn. They're often not even straight. Sometimes the red line's thicker than the blue. It's for me, it's up for manipulation. So I'm unhappy with that today, because honestly, if it was marginally, then it might have been marginally onside rather than off. Who knows?
Yeah, you pretty much hit the nail on the head there. It's a bad camera angle. Even it's not a side-on camera angle. It's looking straight towards the players from the corner of the stadium. So we all know that, like, when the ball goes up in the air and it's moving straight towards the camera, you have no idea what direction it's going. It's like could be heading towards the goal and it's actually heading out for a throw-in, and you can't tell, because that's how depth perception works. And without two different cameras on it, then you're literally just guessing. So what they're doing half the time is they're just putting a line, and it could be floating in front of the player. It could be, and they're aiming for the shoulder. It could actually be like, if you had the second camera, it would be like a meter away from the player. They are literally just guessing. You cannot do more than guess with a 2D image when you're trying to create that three-dimensional frame upon it. And it's real bad. It's real amateur. And like, it's almost goes against the other things. Like, the goal, the Motherwell goal that stood, okay, at halftime I said, yeah, okay, referees should call that as a free kick. And yeah, it's probably not clear and obvious enough for VAR to intervene. I mean, is anyone telling me that offside was clear and obvious? Do you know what I mean? Like, they call it, the term they literally use is a factual error or a factual decision. I'm like, there's nothing factual about that. Like, that's just someone guessing, just looking at a picture, drawing some lines to make it look more legit, but it's just guessing at the end of the day as well.
Yeah, and then that unconscious bias, rather than using the word cheating. The unconscious bias then kicks in, doesn't it? And isn't that the same camera that wasn't working when Jota scored a superb goal 2 seasons ago? I think it was. In the same stadium, yeah. AJSC Tech, we are quite thin if something happens to either Taylor or Idah. Absolutely, I share your concerns. Got to supplement the squad now. And I said, I think at the top of the show, I'm still confident we will. Right, come Tuesday afternoon on the bulletin. Maybe I've got egg in my face. We'll soon see. Barry O'Sullivan, Idah looks like he's improving every week. He's definitely getting sharper, isn't he?
Agree.
And Ryan the Celt, right, Ryan, we're going to turn this. We're going to take your comment and turn it into a positive. That's what we're going to do. Scoring goals for fun across the city whilst we hang on against Motherwell. No, we didn't. We absolutely dominated Motherwell today. We did. I mean, it was like complete control. It was total domination. And that third goal was going to come by hook or by crook. We had the ball in the net a couple of times, chopped off. And I'm glad, actually, it happened the way it did, because we saw that iconic celebration, as Kevin calls it, by Jota. Thanks everybody for getting involved. It's a great time to be a Celtic supporter. Last word for you, Chris.
Yeah, could I just pop in just a couple of wee mentions? There's someone that follows the channel, big fan, it's actually a family, big fan, but the Gallagher family, so Frank Gallagher and his daughter Laurie and a wee boy Luca, whose artwork has become quite famous on the on social media for a former hero and now a very much a new hero, Jota. So just a wee shout out to them. Hope they enjoyed the game today and the wee man's doing well. The other point I want to make is just to say a big thank you to everyone that's donated so far to the upcoming Kilt Walk fund that we're running at the moment. So same as last year, myself, two Sassenachs, as I call them, two good friends from down south, and my 19-year-old daughter this time are joining us to do a 23-mile trek from Clydebank to Balloch on Loch Lomond on April 27th to raise funds for wee Jamie Tierney, who's been the charity patron for the channel. Wee Jamie and his family are overseas at the moment. They've just smashed another treatment, which is great. The wee man was in good spirits earlier, but it's a hell of a tough thing that he's going through, and funds, are badly in need to help the family keep the wee man safe and as healthy as they can. So we're aiming to hit 1,000, and within a week we're already 25% of the way there. So really, just a massive thank you to everybody that's donated. I know there's a fair few from the Acsom community have done so. So really appreciate it. So thank you.
We'll keep that going. We'll keep pushing that, Chris, leading up to the trek. I know that you're obviously in training as we speak on the treadmill and all that kind of stuff, which is great stuff. But we will be pushing that and sharing it on the socials as well. Listen, Jota's back. Jota's on the wing. Let's see who we sign over the next 20 odd or maybe 30 hours or so before that window slams shut. And we'll be talking about it all on a Celtic State of Mind. Thanks for joining us, and come back tomorrow at 12:30 for more of a Celtic State of Mind.
Yeah.